bringing you a kid-friendly radio show. Every Saturday afternoon on YouTube. Broadcasting live at 1 o'clock. Broadcasting live at 1 o'clock.
Hello and welcome to episode 59 of the Brit Show with me, Ethan. Coming up on today's show, my interview with BBC Radio 5 Live and CBBC's Newsround presenter Hayley Hassall. But before we get into that, it was my birthday this week and Father's Day yesterday, so that is why the show is a little bit late, a day late. I had a lovely birthday and got a number of very exciting things, including a Google Nest Hub, which is very exciting, and I'm excited to automate some of the bits of my filming and production process. I've also got a few things coming as well to help upgrade the production quality of the podcast. I also want to say a happy Father's Day to all the fathers across the world for yesterday, because this is coming out on Monday. But now it is time to get into my interview with presenter Hayley Hassall. Welcome on the show, BBC Newsround and BBC Radio 5 Live presenter, reporter for The One Show, ITV Tonight and Panorama. It's Hayley Hassall.
Hi Ethan, oh it's so lovely to be here. Thank you so much for having me on. I'm excited.
Thank you for coming on. So if people don't know who you are, tell them what you do.
So I'm one of the presenters on Newsround. I've been on Newsround for 12 years, doing crazy things like jumping from planes and swimming with sharks, but also reporting on the refugee crisis and big events like wars and elections and things. I also present a show on Radio 5 Live, a 4-hour show called Up All Night, where we talk about all the big stories of the day, but look at behind the scenes at the people who are affected. But in the past, I've worked for The One Show, for Panorama, and I do a lot of investigations that go out on Radio 4 and also on the BBC television and on podcasts, where I take issues and things that I think need help or raising awareness about, and I try and report on them to try and create some change.
Yeah, so let's start right at the beginning. What were you like at school?
Wow, at school I was, as everyone is, a child who had fun. I came from a small town just outside of Blackpool in the northwest of England. I had a speech impediment when I was little, so a stammer, which meant that I couldn't talk very well, and I got bullied a bit about it. I used to get called Donald Duck, and it made me scared to answer questions in class or stand up and talk in assembly, things like that. But I was always a child who wanted to do those things. I always wanted to talk, answer questions, ask questions, be on the stage in assembly and read, but I was always a bit scared to do so until I got to high school, so about 11 years old, and I decided that I was just going to do it anyway. Whether I stammered or not, I was just going to get up there and talk about things. And of course I did stutter often, but it didn't stop me, and I think that has made me a bit who I am, I suppose. It's made me somebody who wants to talk about things, but every word I say is a little bit harder for me, so I make sure every word I say counts and that my words mean something to create change. But yeah, growing up I loved dancing and sport and acting and just playing with my friends.
But now your whole career is on speaking now. So do you think that hardness to like speak in public influenced what you now do or not?
Yeah, it definitely has meant it doesn't come easy, and there must be part of me that doesn't want an easy life, because it was so much easier for me not to talk for a living. But the fact that I do, I think, is benefit as well as difficulty, because I do think that being a journalist, if you show your vulnerability and if things aren't always easy for you, then it allows other people to open up about their stories and their lives too. I think not everybody's perfect, and that's a good thing to know. And I also think that because it's a little bit more difficult for me to talk. I do take care with every word I say. And so everything I say, means a lot more than perhaps somebody who finds it really easy.
Yeah. So what did you want to be when you were younger?
Oh my gosh, everything. I used to change my mind every month. I once wanted to be a crop farmer. I wanted to be a nurse. I wanted to be give people foot massages. I got well into foot massages for a while. I wanted to be a nurse, and I wanted to be a journalist. And I wanted to be a journalist for the most part. I often thought it would never be possible. So I think I just sort of had the other jobs as a backup. But yeah, I've managed to do it so far.
So when did you start wanting to be a journalist then?
Oh, it was always there in the background from the age of 4. I remember using a cereal box, a Weetabix cereal box, where I cut out the front and I slotted in different scenes from magazines and used to do news stories. So I'd be and I'd record it on my tape recorder, and then I'd say the news and I'd pull out and I'd do adverts in between, and I'd also make up radio shows at home. And then as soon as there was the possibility of writing for a school newspaper, I did that in primary school and high school. And then in high school, I started doing petitions and trying to change things. In my high school, girls weren't allowed to wear trousers. And I set up a petition to get that changed. And then it did change. The headmaster said that girls could now wear trousers, and they still can to this day. And I got a phone box put out on the street. So, from the moment I could write and complain about something, that's basically what I was doing.
Yeah, like you said, you made up radio shows as well. I did that when I was younger. So I just presented, and I remember and I forced my parents to listen to it. So at one time I read all of the events that were going on, like in the winter or something, in this magazine that County Durham County Council sent out, and I read all of the events and all of the details and forced my parents to listen to them.
It sounds like a brilliant radio show, but I honestly think anyone who works in the media has got to have invented their own radio show as a child. So I think it's brilliant. And look at you now, Ethan. You have got your own show and it's doing so well that it's obviously put you in good stead.
Yeah. So why did you want to go into the broadcasting industry?
Oh gosh, I think I always felt like I wanted to have a say. I've always felt that I wanted to right wrongs. So if I have got quite a big conscience, and if I ever see something wrong, or someone's victim of something, or something's not unfair, I kind of want to raise awareness about that, because it's kind of the only thing I can do to help. But there are many different ways of doing that, and I think there's part of my job that has been just coincidence, part of it luck, and part of it really hard work. I came into the BBC almost 20 years ago now, and I started as a runner. So I was making cups of tea, and I was working for documentaries down in London, and I loved the documentaries I worked in, and because I was so enthusiastic, I gave a lot of ideas and did a bit more. So then I was promoted to be a researcher, which I loved, and then during that time I volunteered to go undercover for a program called Panorama, where they investigate big issues around the country. And so I went undercover. I had a different name. I went to work in hospitals and care homes, and in different environments around the country. And through that, I got a taste of what it's like to be a reporter, because I had to report on my findings. And then I had to go on television shows afterwards and talk about the program I just made. And then I thought, wow, there's a bigger world out there. I can perhaps go and report more and do more stories that make a difference to the world. So it happened gradually, and it happened a little bit by coincidence, and the fact that I was offered something, and that's still the case now. This media world is not very secure. You never know what you're going to be doing next, but you've just got to grasp every opportunity, say yes to everything that sits well with you in your heart, and if you do your best, I think that there's a space for you.
Yeah. So did you go to uni, and if so, what degree did you do?
I went to university and I studied fine art and English literature. So I was basically painting, writing. So you might think that's got nothing to do with my job, but I suppose visually I studied a lot of photography and filmography. So I'm quite good at coming up with design concepts and making my films look pretty slick. And obviously English literature, I'm quite good at analysing and writing. And then after that, I went and did a sort of follow-on course in law. And through that, I learned about the law of the country, but also the law of journalism, and to understand what is possible, what's right, what's wrong, and the ins and outs of the laws, which are quite pivotal in journalism. I then thought I wanted to be a lawyer or a solicitor, and went to work for a law company. And during that time, they asked if I could make videos and little bits of media. And I thought, you know what? I think I want to go into media a bit more than law. I can use my knowledge to help me be a better journalist, but I kind of want to be a bit on the front line.
Yeah, so what was your first job in the broadcasting industry? Was it being a runner in then documentaries?
Yeah, so my first job was being a runner in the documentaries. However, I did volunteer for free for many years before that. I worked for hospital radio, I worked for local radio at the weekends and at nights. I worked on my friend's radio station. So I did loads of free volunteer work before I ever got my first paid job at the BBC. But my first paid job was being a runner down in London for a pittance of money. But it was a wonderful experience.
Yeah. So that I know that's quite a lot of people's first job into the broadcasting industry, a runner. So what was it like seeing yourself for the first time on TV?
Gosh, it happened a bit gradually, because as a runner, you're often asked to fill in parts, actually. So there'd be times where I just have to sit in the background, or they needed someone to wash the pots on a cookery show I was working on. So I was a pot washer. And then I'd start doing interviews with people that were in the film. So you wouldn't see me, but you'd see the interview I did. So that gave me loads of experience of being a journalist, even though you didn't often see me. And then it just made me think that I want to get more involved and I want to get more out of this. And it turned out I was quite good at doing the interviews. And so I wanted to do more of them.
Yeah. So when did you go for the first time live on TV, and how was that experience?
Gosh, I think so during my time as a reporter and doing my documentaries, I would then go on to programs, radio and TV programs like ITV This Morning or BBC Breakfast, and talk about my documentary. So that was live, but I suppose I was a guest. I was talking about my findings as a guest rather than being in control of the program. The first live show I ever did was for Newsround. And the first day I ever went live presenting the show was because the other presenter hadn't turned up. I think it was a snowy day. They couldn't get into the office, and I was there. And he said, "Hayley, you're on." And I went on, and I think it's still even on YouTube, because I'd not even had a rehearsal. I'd never practiced doing it live. And it all went very well until the tape got stuck and the tape wouldn't play. So I was sort of telling everybody that they could watch this film about Jedward, who were an act on X Factor once, and the tape didn't play. And of course, I'd never rehearsed what would happen if the screen just froze on me. So I just basically smiled for a while. And there's loads of people talking to me and panicking in my head. And then I just say, "Okay, let's move on." So it was a bit of a problematic first time. But you know what? I've never done that again. I've always made sure I know what to say if the tape gets stuck.
Has the tape got stuck ever again?
Loads, all the time, loads. So we call it a BT, but a film doesn't play, or it's the wrong one, or you're supposed to be speaking to someone down the line and they're not there, you can't hear them. Stuff like that happens every week. So now I feel like I'm equipped to say, we're just having a technical issue, or sorry, we can't hear that. We'll be back with you. You just move on to the next thing and you hopefully get it back. You just got to be prepared to change things a little bit when you're live. Yeah.
So as you mentioned, you're probably best known for presenting at children's news show Newsround since 2009. But how did you get that job?
I had to apply an audition and go for a screen test. So it was a long process. I think 16,000 people applied for the job at the time.
Oh, wow.
And I had to write a big application form about why I thought I could do the job. I then had to go and meet the team and have what they call a bit of an interview with them. And then you had a screen test, which is a bit like an audition, where you sit on a sofa in the studio and you have a go at doing Newsround. Of course, I've never done anything like that before. I'd not even studied media at university. So it was my first time in a studio. But for some crazy reason, they decided that I could do the job, and they offered me the job there.
Yeah. So Newsround is now a household name. If you have kids, you'll know what it is. If you are a kid, you'll know what it is. So what is it like to present such a popular show?
Oh, it's amazing. It's one of the best jobs in the world. You get to cover every single news event and all the big stories. And but take those stories to an audience that perhaps have never heard them before. And for me, that's a privilege to be able to tell young people about what's going on in the world is such a job that you need to be trusted with, and it's got such high expectations and a lot of responsibility on your shoulders. But I feel like it's an honor to be able to do that. You also get to do all the fun stories as well, so it's brilliant. You get to, you know, go out and meet the animals in the zoo, or you get to meet kids every day who tell you the most wonderful things. And you get allowed into places that you don't get allowed to in normal life. People welcome you into their homes so that you can talk to them about what they care about. And it honestly is a privilege to work for Newsround.
Yeah. So Newsround has recently turned 50. So
know.
in your opinion, how has it managed to continue for this long, and why is it so important today?
I think it's continued for 50 years because it's needed. I honestly think I can't imagine a time when there isn't news for young people. And so I think that the moment John Craven started Newsrounds, that it worked because it was needed. Young people are crying out to know what's happening in the world. It has changed a lot, even over the time I've been working on Newsrounds. It's changed. It's become more social media friendly. It is less on the telly and more online and on websites, but we connect with children at a much greater level. So we are on your phone, we're on your iPad, wherever you want to catch the news, you can. And we also are responding to what kids want to hear about. So it's not only what they need to know, but it's what they want to know as well. It's what people are talking about in the playgrounds. It's what young people care about. So that's why Newsround's so popular, because kids want to know what they care about. We're a trusted source. And so instead of going somewhere that they don't know who's made this news or what it's about or where it's come from, they know they can trust what we're saying, and we know we're impartial, and they know that we will give them the truth, and the truth that they care about.
Yeah. So you share a studio with CBBC HQ. So how chaotic is that when you're presenting, when you have to run out, they have to run in, you have to run in, they have to run out? How does that work?
It is a bit crazy, and to be honest, it was a lot crazier in the past. So ever since lockdown, you may remember that thing called lockdown, we are quite separate now. We still share the same studio, and they're just behind the camera over there, but we don't have the same time. So we present Newsrounds in the morning, and then they come in mid-morning and do CBBC. So we are never actually running in and out anymore. But it is also really helpful because you can go and use their set, they can go and use ours, and we obviously ask each other to come on as guests. So sometimes they'll come on the news and we'll go on and be crazy on CBBC HQ. So it's brilliant, and it feels like we're one big family as well. We can help each other. It's really important that we're not just a news show. We are part of the CBBC family, and we know what other programmes kids are watching. So it feels really lovely being in the same studio as them.
Yeah. So what is the most exciting thing that you've done through Newsround? You mentioned you've jumped out of a plane, but what is the most exciting thing?
Goodness me, it's so hard because there's been so much. Yes, I've jumped out of a plane. I've swum with sharks. I've rescued lions. I've gone up in an air balloon. There's so many crazy things like that. But I suppose the most exciting things have been the big stories, actually, the stories that have really made a change to things. So I worked on a few films that we made all about children who are going hungry. So children who haven't got enough to eat at home. And we took a load of children and took them to see the Children's Commissioner, who rallied to get food given to children in school holidays. So I honestly think that doing something like that brings about change and gets talked about is way more exciting than jumping out of a plane.
Yeah. And who are some of the most famous people you have got to interview?
Wow, again, there are loads. This is why Newsround's so good. You get to talk to everyone that's in the news. So I've spoken to, gosh, every prime minister that has been in power since I've started. I have spoken to Prince William and Kate Middleton. I have interviewed celebrities such as David Beckham, Frank Lampard, Raheem Sterling, Marcus Rashford, Little Mix, Cheryl Cole. Goodness me, I cannot list them all, because the brilliant thing that anyone who's won X Factor to Strictly Come Dancing to, you know, being a big person in the news that you want to talk to, like a prime minister, we get to speak to them, because it's really important that they get to speak to the young people of this world. So it's a wonderful privilege, and you get to speak to all these people.
Yeah, is there anyone that you've not had the chance to interview yet that you really, really do want to?
Good question. I haven't interviewed Boris Johnson yet, and I would love the chance to interview Boris Johnson. I've got a lot of questions for him, and I'm sure the children of this country have a lot of questions too. As you can imagine, he's a busy man, but hopefully one day soon I'll get my chance.
Yes, I would love to interview him as well. I'm kind of doing. I'm getting.
Well, let me know if you get him, Ethan. We'll talk together.
Yep, I'm getting one step closer to him, because next week I'm interviewing my local MP, and then I'm also going to be doing a panel of young people on Zoom that can put forward questions for her as well.
Brilliant.
So that should be good. But yes, what is your favourite moment of Newsround, of your time on Newsround?
Gosh, my famous moment on Newsround. I've been on Newsround 12 years, Ethan. I can't even remember all the moments. My favourite moment. I mean, there's ones that stand out just for being hilariously daft. Like we did, World Book Day at school, when everyone dresses up as their favourite character. We decided to have 16 children in the studio live in the morning, and one of them was a 4-year-old dressed as Spider-Man. And I remember sat here and him crawling all behind the set, all over me, and I was trying to control them while I talk about very important news that's going on. So things like that. I remember
doing. Is the studio big enough for that?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a bit bigger than what you can see here. So yeah, they're a bit crammed. And I suppose it's about as big as your lounge. And there was times when I've had to, do reports around animals. I've had a goose called George, who didn't like me very much, who started pecking at the back of my head. So I've had hilarious moments of that definitely stand out. But I've also had just lovely days with brilliant people. It's just all been brilliant.
Yeah. And what is your favourite and least favourite thing about Newsround?
Gosh, my favourite thing is getting to meet children around the country. I think all of us presenters on Newsround agree that the best part of it is going out and meeting kids, because they are so inspirational. They ask amazing questions. They've got such passions. They've got a lot of questions that they need answering. And so it feels amazing that we can go out and meet young people in this country from all over the country as well. My least favourite thing about Newsround, that's hard. Oh no, actually, it's easy. It's the hours. I have to be up at 5 o'clock in the morning, and I've done it for many years, and I would like a lion. So yeah, the hardest thing is getting up early in the morning.
Yeah. So you mentioned with Panorama, you've done multiple documentaries where you go undercover, like the British home care scandal and Midwives Undercover. So how is it recording and reporting undercover?
Yeah, that was a pretty tough job, actually. It's tiring. You're basically doing 2 jobs. So you go and do your job undercover, and you've got to do that job to the best you can be. You've got to be trained to do it well, and you've got to put that at the forefront in your mind, because you cannot let anybody down when you're in that role. The journalism comes second. So I just have to record what I find. I have to speak to people about what it's like for them. But then when I go home after my job, I have to write a diary about everything that happened. I have to download all the footage and edit it and sort it all out. I have to record every moment that I did and that other people did. So that can take another day. And then you've got to also pick up as many shifts and as much work as you can. So it was really difficult time-wise. It was draining and also emotionally difficult, because you are not allowed to tell many people in your life what you're doing. But it was so rewarding that at the end of the day, both those documentaries you mentioned brought about change and made a difference to maternity services in the UK and how home care works in this country. So it is incredibly rewarding and definitely worth doing.
Yeah. So how long did you go undercover in them 2 incidences?
When I was working on Midwives Undercover for Panorama, I was undercover for just over a year.
Wow.
I worked in 3 different hospitals around the UK. Then when I went undercover working in home care, again, I worked all across the country for around 9 months. So they were big parts of my life. And of course, after you go undercover, you then have to start making the programs. So it's interviewing people and, you know, like you do, getting the backstories behind everything, and then trying to make a program that creates impact and raises awareness.
Yeah. So when you went undercover as a midwife, I thought for a midwife you need years of training. So how did that work?
No, of course you need years of training. I was basically a healthcare assistant, so I got to work on fertility wards as an assistant in sort of like a volunteer capacity. But the point of the documentary was showing that there wasn't enough training given to staff. They were short-staffed, so it meant that lots of people were brought in to help when they shouldn't be. So, for instance, me as a sort of volunteer assistant was made to check the heartbeats of babies and, you know, help women through labour. And so those things shouldn't have happened, really. And the point was I wasn't trained, so I shouldn't have been asked to do those things. So it's kind of the point that I wasn't trained.
Yeah. So what advice would you give me to becoming a TV presenter?
Oh, Ethan, you're already doing so amazingly well. So I honestly don't think I can give you any advice at all. You're so brilliant at contacting people and trying to get their stories. You are really good at engaging and doing your research. You obviously know a lot about me before you've even spoken to me, and that's so wonderful. I think the only advice I can give is I think the best interviewers really listen to what the people say. And so, I mean, you already do this, but yeah, the best advice I can give is just listen to the person you're interviewing, try and imagine yourself in their shoes and try and reflect their story the best you can.
Thank you. Thank you for coming on today.
It's on the bottom of my email signature as well. So
okay, thank you.
All right, Ethan, thank you so much.
Bye.
Absolutely brilliant. It's been lovely to meet you.
So hopefully you liked my interview. I do want to say a big thank you to Hayley for giving up her time for an interview. I'm sad that I didn't get all my questions asked, but that was fully my fault for not asking her how much time she had. So I will do that in the future. Also, if I did look a little bit dead on that interview, it was 8:30 in the morning. She did say she was on night, so it was 8:30 in the morning. So that is why I was looking a little bit tired. But yeah, if you do want to check out more of Hayley, the link to her socials are in the description down below. Sadly, that is the way of time for in today's episode. We'll be back on the 3rd of July at the same time with another great interview and the 60th, yes, the 60th episode. Please share this video with your friends and family. Like, comment, listen to last week's episode if you haven't already. Listen to this show until the end. Email me, follow me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram and TikTok, and subscribe because we are trying to get to 200 subscribers. And watch my YouTube Shorts challenge as well, where we're uploading a video every day on this channel. In the meantime, if you have any suggestions to make the show better, or if you want the chance to come on the show, comment below, message me on Facebook, Twitter or Instagram, or email me at thebritkidshow@gmail.com. So that is all we have time for this week. We will be back on the 3rd of July at the same time, but for now, goodbye.
Bringing you a kid-friendly radio show every Saturday afternoon on YouTube, broadcasting live at 1 o'clock, broadcasting